So welcome to everybody, those who are here and those who are connected. Thank you for attending the presentation. My presentation is entitled Automotive Cybersecurity, yet another concern, set of standards and regulations. Let's make a multi-concept perspective. So first, I wish to highlight that this talk is related to 3 projects. One is AMAS, architecture-driven, multi-concern, seamless assurance and certification of cyber-physical systems. Multi-concern was a key technical scientific objective. It is involved also with the project that is mentioned by Marian, SACSIS, Safe and Secure Adaptive Collaborative System, where safety and security are in focus, and also to a tiny project, a sprint within the software centers, criticality-aware socio-technical system architecting for quality assurance. In relation to this, I recently gave a talk at the Software Center seminars. In case you're interested, you can Google. So the context, repetita iuvant, Latin people say. I will have some information that overlaps with other talks, but this is also useful. So the automotive is witnessing a disruption, and the disruption is in front of us, meaning that we see that there are lots of lines of code circulating, and it was mentioned by Nasser that there is a prediction that in the future there will be 1 billion lines of code, and I also read that. And this is also important to highlight that not only vehicle itself, but the vehicle is becoming more and more connected. And there is another prediction that by next year, there will be 775 million consumer vehicles that will be connected via telematics or by in-vehicle apps. And all this for what? Because we are progressively transforming the driving task from manual to automated. So through the different automation levels that will have been defined by SAE, if you're interested, here you have the link. The lines of code is increasing because we are shifting the responsibility of the driving task, so we need much more lines of code in order to make this possible. And why all this? Because we have ambitious long-term goals. One is to contribute to the Vision Zero, which was introduced in Sweden in 1997, so reduce the number of fatalities, possibly to 0. This is quite utopic, but that is the intention, to improve the situation. Contribute to the enhanced efficiency via over-the-air updates, contribute to emission reduction, and enhance broader mobility. So the success of a road vehicle depends on its software much more than mechanical side. And if we now look inside and outside to see how the vehicle is expected to interact with the surrounding, we see that there are plenty of interfaces. Interfaces, as it was mentioned, for infotainment, interfaces for sensing, interfaces for communicating and getting the updates from the backend servers, from the suppliers and the manufacturer. And we said that there are a huge number of lines of code, and bugs will be introduced. If you think and you take the chance to write a few lines of code now, you will see that you will introduce bugs. So this larger set of interfaces makes the surface, the attack surface, larger. And the slogan, famous slogan, which was introduced by Bloomfield and others, if you're not secure, you're not safe. Imagine that you're driving and all of a sudden you get a message, a nice message telling to you you are under a ransomware attack, and your computing system will be locked. This is also a prediction that is about to happen. So as it was mentioned by Stefan, it is true that the interest regarding cybersecurity in the automotive context is quite recent. Actually, it was in 2010 that we had the so-called white hat hackers that have challenged the vehicles. And here you have the reference if you're interested. Initially, they were criticized because the comment was that the attack could be only conducted by being physically close. But 1 year after, as it was said, they managed to actually perform the same type of attack remotely. And by doing so, they demonstrated that it was possible to introduce malicious code via the vulnerabilities present in the interfaces and take control and disengage the brakes or engage the brakes when this is not desired. So since human creativity is amazing on both sides, it is good that we have the white hat hackers, and Stefan in his CV has highlighted that he's an ethical hacker. And so we also researchers contribute in highlighting possible vulnerabilities in order to counter attack the black hat hackers, which are going to become many. Imagine just because you are bored. So this is why cybersecurity is now yet another concern. And there are many stakeholders that are involved and are interested in cybersecurity. I'm also interested as a stakeholder, as a user, as a possible passenger, as a pedestrian, as a cyclist, and also as a researcher, contributor, indirectly or directly within standardization organizations, as expert evaluator for the European Commission, and contributing with suppliers and or manufacturers. So all these people, not all of them together, of course, but subsets of these people, different stakeholders, gathers, brainstorm, and open new research groups in order to elaborate on a possible technical solution or requirements which represent just the baseline of what they are in the position to do in that time period in order to tackle a specific concern. And as it was said, last year, for the first time in the automotive sector, there was the release of a standard that was providing the interpretation for cybersecurity in the automotive sector, defined as condition in which assets are sufficiently protected against threat scenarios to electrical or electronic components of road vehicles and their functions. So you have inside what? You have a cybersecurity life cycle, a first elaboration of the cybersecurity assurance levels, the cybersecurity cultures requirements also about the provision of a security case. And here I'm highlighting a small portion of this life cycle where you see that first thing that you have to do is defining the item, so what it is about, and then brainstorming on the TARA in order to perform the threat analysis and the risk assessment. After that, you are able to elaborate the cybersecurity goals. And if we zoom inside the TARA, we see here a list of steps. No? And I want to highlight here that beyond the step that was mentioned before, asset identification and the difficulty of identifying those assets, at some point you also have to perform the attack path analysis. So understanding where an attack, which can be interpreted as an external failure, goes through the systems. So once you follow a process, you follow it in order to produce artifacts, and the ones that I'm showing here are the artifacts that are expected within the standard for that specific portion of the life cycle. So we have cybersecurity goals, TARA, results, and cybersecurity claims. There is another standard that I'm going to mention a little bit more, is a standard for the software update engineering. It is not yet available. The draft is circulating right now. And be aware that there are many standards that are in the planning phase, and perhaps even right now there are brains that are brainstorming in order to create new groups, because there is a lot that needs to be learned and solved. Regarding the regulations, one was already mentioned, the 155 on cybersecurity and the cybersecurity management systems. So those regulations have been released by the United Nations Economic Commission of Europe. There is also another one, the 156, and that is on the software updates. So you can see that they are going hand in hand, the standards and the regulations. And the thing is that the standards are not legally binding unless they are endorsed by the regulations. And now the regulations are endorsing those standards. And here I'm listing the threats, the types of threats that you are expected to address with respect to the regulation 155. In the annex, you can see that this is the list. It is also of interest to highlight that a manufacturer has to sign a declaration of compliance. And of course, when it's not only a question of signing, but it's also a question of producing a lot of evidence in order to support such declaration. And then if you are compliant, you get a certificate of compliance. So as it was said, by 2024, no car will be allowed on the road unless developed in a secure manner, in compliance with these regulations. Perhaps you are following, perhaps not. So I make a picture here as a summary, and also to highlight that cybersecurity is not monolithic, is not addressed in a monolithic manner. We need to learn, as we heard since a few years ago, no cybersecurity in the automotive, all of a sudden cybersecurity is paramount. So what we are doing, what they are doing is taking the approach divide and conquer. Standard by standard, tile by tile, we learn what we can do in this time period, okay? So this is the same for the safety. Safety, what does it mean, safety? It can mean FUSA, functional safety. It then meant also the SOTIF, safety of the intended functionality. So let's do more. We understand that if we just do functional safety, we can miss something. So let's introduce a new standard where we now augment and we tackle other challenges. And this is what is happening. And there is no surprise that they are learning from each other, because within the groups of people who are producing the standards, there is a subset of the same people. And here also I'm on purpose underlying that also these standards in safety are recommending a life cycle, the safety life cycle, the SOTIF life cycle, where you can see that there is an overlapping. Again, item definition and HARA in this case, hazards analysis and risk assessment, with a focus on risks related to functional safety or risks related to the safety of the intended functionality. And here the proof of the fact that the standards that I mentioned are actually endorsed within the regulation 155, where it is written that the people who are responsible for the approval authority have to have the competence regarding those standards. And of course, if your competitors have to have that competence, also you that you have to be compliant with those, you have to have that competence. So what do I want to convey as a message here with my title, Let's Take a Multi-Concept Perspective, is this. If we now extract the different portions of the life cycle, we see that there are similarities, and we learned that these communities may benefit from each other. Departments within the same company may benefit from each other. Same from a work product perspective. If you look inside the work product perspective, is a piece of a product and is describing a piece of a an issue is describing a piece of an item. The same for an argumentation perspective. So what I'm introducing is a multi-concept perspective, looking into a multi-concept process line where you identify the similarities and variabilities within the processes, same for the argumentation, and same within each work product that describes the product. This is a summary also. In this case, you have 3 dimensions here: the dimension for the process, the dimension for the argumentation, and the dimension for the product. And we worked on all these dimensions in order to introduce a multi-concept perspective and highlight the commonalities and the variabilities. Here I'm reporting publications. In case you are interested in some of these aspects, you contact me. With respect to what I mentioned before, that for safety, you have to do the HARA. For the cybersecurity, you have to do the TARA. What we are proposing is to try to do the co-analysis. And we have enabled the possibility to see the overlap between the attack path analysis and the failure propagation analysis that you do in normal safety engineering. With respect to argumentation, also in this case, we look for the overlapping and the continuity of the 2 different cases. Voila, so the research agenda includes multi-concept co-engineering from a process perspective, multi-concept assurance, multi-concept analysis and assessment, and I would be interested in cooperating in looking into multi-concept with respect to the different automation level. I thank you for your attention. In case you have questions, I'm here.
Do you have questions?